I want to welcome you to No Nonsense Nonprofits. Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, we're going to be talking about building your operating reserve policy. Now, we as business entities and especially nonprofits face all kinds of uncertainty, like from delays in funding, emergencies, economic shifts. So it's really essential to have this rainy day fund or reserve fund for our organizations. This helps us even out those cash flow issues, or even when something unexpected happens, gives us the ability to take steps to correct things. Today, we're going to be talking about the policy, what the items should be going into that policy, and we even have a template to go through it with you. So let's get started. We're really talking about a written policy that guides the management team and the rest of the staff on what to do with regards to reserves. So we want to have a written policy that's approved by the board. We really want to avoid any informal or unwritten reserve practices, because really as staff turns over, as things happen, they get forgotten about. We want to put what the board determines is necessary in that policy, and so everyone is clear on it. In the policy, you want to define the purpose, how the reserve fund is calculated, and how the reserve fund can be used. We're trying to build accountability and transparency here, especially during transitions of management team or board members and during the audit. If the board designates this reserve fund, we're going to be reflecting that on our statement of financial position in the net assets. So we want to treat this policy as a detailed playbook. We want to identify the purpose, the type of policies that you're going to have. You can have more than one, how it's calculated, defining the funds that can be used, or defining the funds and how they can be accessed. What is the purpose? What is the approval process? Are funds to be segregated or in their own investment, or are they commingled with other funds? And what are the reporting responsibilities to the board of directors and external users? And what are investment guidelines? So we want to ensure that these policies addresses all these items, because these are all questions that come up. We want to identify a funding source. So if it's coming from a built-in surplus that you have in your budget every year, if contributions or grant funds can be allocated towards the reserve, certainly we can do that. And is there going to be a line item in the annual budget where we are planning to have a transfer out of cash into these reserve funds? One thing you want to do is you want to set limits. So there's no universal standard for this. We need to tailor it to your organization. A common benchmark is 3 to 6 months of operating expenses. But once you've achieved that, I recommend you moving to a 9 to 12 month operating expenses. Or maybe we have different types of reserves, but at least to cover different types, like maybe we have a retirement fund reserve or whatever, that will help cover those expenses if we're experiencing a lull that's different than just a general reserve. We want to make sure that if our funding source is stable or it fluctuates during the year, we want to make sure that we account for that. And we want to set targets and review those targets on a regular basis. You want to manage your reserves separately from other funds. So we're definitely going to be reporting this in our statement of financial position, but you can have different reserve funds. They can be for strategic purposes. Maybe you have a plan for down the road and you want to reserve funds for those. They could be for capital expenditures. Like I said before, it could be for saving for a retirement program or just general operations. So designating different reserve funds for different purposes helps us to keep these things aligned properly, less confusion for the purposes. And then we want to update these policies on a regular basis. Biannually is probably fine to update, to have the finance committee or this executive committee or the board review them. You want to check for continued relevance, adequate funding, what happened. You might want to do that during the year, and any organizational or board changes that may affect the policy. Maybe the board wants to up the number, reduce the number, whatever. So I have for you today a sample policy that we have, very generic. And you can see that this is just a 2-page policy. We've got the effective date, approved by, last review, next review, the purpose, and it's to establish an operating reserve fund. And it lists what this reserve fund is for, temporary revenue shortfalls, etc. The policy statement says that this is what the target is. This is where your 3 to 6 months comes in. And it's not intended to replace a permanent loss of funds or eliminate an ongoing budget gap. I think that's important. Your target reserve level, again, it talks about the months and how it's calculated. For example, if you have an operating budget of 1.2 million, a 3-month reserve would be 300,000. Funding the reserve, where's the money coming from to fund this reserve? And once you reach a certain dollar amount, that's where it stops. The use of the reserves, and I would also say how the approval policy for does the executive director have to go to the board? To the executive committee, can they approve it? That kind of thing, to pull money out of the reserves. A replenishment strategy. If you're going to pull money out, then how are you going to put it back in to build that reserve up? How are those reserves going to be invested? Reporting and oversight. There's a section on that. And review and revision, and then related policies that someone might want to review when they're reviewing this. So I have put a link to this document in the description for our Facebook Live today. If you're watching or recording, you can always let us know that you would like to get a copy of this template and we will send it to you. We'll get your information offline. And I just really want to thank you for joining us today. I hope this information about the reserve policy and implementing it was helpful for you. And if you have any questions on this or other topics, we would love to hear from you. So put that in the comment section below. Of course, we always appreciate your likes. And I want to thank you for joining me. Remember, creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.